You walk through the front door. You're not angry. You're not frustrated. You're just empty. Your spouse says something. You barely hear it. They try again and you snap. Not because they did anything wrong, because you already used up everything you had today and none of it went to them. Most people call that a relationship problem. It's not. It's because your marriage doesn't have two people in it. It has three. You, your spouse, and the person who controls your time before you ever get home. And once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it. The usual explanation sounds like this. If you're fighting, it's communication. If you're distant, someone stopped trying. If you're unhappy, someone checked out. But that explanation misses the biggest force acting on your home every single day. Because in most marriages, there's a third party deciding how many hours you're away, how much stress you bring back, how much energy you have left, and what your household can or can't do about any of it. That third party is your boss. And they don't need to step foot in your house to reshape your marriage. They only need to control your schedule. Think about what your boss actually gets from you. On the surface, they're buying your labor. That part's obvious, but look closer. What they're really getting is your sharpest thinking, your best patience, your most focused hours, and your strongest energy. Then you come home. Your spouse doesn't get the version of you that solved problems all day, stayed calm in meetings, and powered through deadlines. Your spouse gets what's left over. The low battery version. And this has nothing to do with willpower. Think of it like a water tank. You wake up with a full tank of time, energy, patience, and emotional bandwidth. Your boss drains most of it between 9 and 6. Whatever trickles out after that is all your spouse and your kids ever see. Every hour in a meeting is an hour that doesn't exist at home. Every bit of composure you spent on a difficult coworker is composure your spouse will never get that evening. Your boss captures the best of you, while your home absorbs the cost. And here's what makes this tricky. The fatigue doesn't clock out when you do. It follows you through the front door and lands on the person closest to you, but no one puts that on a paycheck. So two people end up blaming each other for damage that started somewhere else entirely. We'll come back to that. But first, picture this whole thing as one big pipeline. Your boss sits at the very top. They take your best hours, drain your patience, all of that. But most importantly, they decide what you can and can't say no to. A late meeting, a surprise deadline, a work trip that gets stretched by 2 days. Your spouse absorbs every single one of those disruptions, usually without any warning, usually without a thank you. But the real shift happens when your household starts depending heavily on one income. Because the more your family relies on that paycheck, the more power your boss holds over your marriage, and they probably don't even know it. They don't need to threaten your family. They only need to be the reason you can't push back. And then there's something else going on underneath all of this. Your boss rewards you for being responsive, available, productive, and compliant. Your marriage needs the exact opposite. Presence, patience, slowing down, making repairs after a rough day. Those two systems are pulling the same person in opposite directions every single day, and most of the time, the one writing the check wins. Let me show you what this looks like in real life. One spouse earns a good salary, stable job, but the hours are brutal. 11-hour days, emails at night, weekend check-ins that are supposedly optional but never really feel that way. The other spouse says, "You're never really here." The working spouse says, "I'm doing this for us." And both of them are telling the truth. The boss is quietly converting extra pay into less presence. More money flowing in, less of the person earning it coming home. That situation feels specific. One of you is stretched thin, the other is left waiting. But change one detail, and the entire picture flips, while the problem stays exactly the same. Now both of you are working. Neither of you has any flexibility. Dinner becomes logistics. Weekends become recovery. You argue over who forgot to call the plumber, who missed the school email. One rough week at either job, and the whole house starts slipping. You are not failing at marriage. You are trying to run a home with nothing left to run it on. And this is where the pattern becomes easier to see, because it stops looking like stress and starts behaving like something else. Power. One of you has a rigid schedule. The other has a little more flexibility or earns a little less. At first it feels like a small difference, but over time, one of you becomes the default person who absorbs the household. School pickups, sick days, appointments, last-minute changes when the other one gets stuck at work. Slowly, you stop feeling like a partner and start feeling like support staff. Nobody chose that on purpose. The job market simply decided whose time was more expensive, and your marriage reorganized itself around that, without ever saying it out loud. Let's put some numbers on it. Say one spouse makes $95,000 with zero flexibility, the other makes $45,000 with a flexible schedule. When something breaks, a sick kid, a car issue, a school event, who deals with it? The $45,000 spouse. Every single time. Over a year, that spouse might absorb 200 extra hours of unplanned disruption, unpaid, untracked, and nobody calls it a cost because the higher income can't be interrupted. One person doing invisible work that never shows up anywhere, and nobody agreed to that arrangement. It was inherited from whoever earns more per hour. In most marriages, there's a question running underneath everything that nobody says out loud. Who can actually say no to work? If your boss calls at 7 p.m. and needs something by morning, can you say no? If a trip gets extended by 2 days, can you push back? If overtime becomes the norm, can you opt out? For a lot of families, the answer is no. And it has nothing to do with loyalty or ambition. It comes down to exposure. When a family has a mortgage, car payments, school fees, and one main income, that boss becomes the person the household cannot afford to upset. You don't negotiate. You comply. And then you walk through your front door carrying all of that weight with nowhere to put it. Now the spouse who carries the flexibility, the one picking up all the slack at home, usually has less financial power in the relationship. They absorb more of the chaos, but have less say in how money gets spent or how decisions get made. That gap didn't come from inside the marriage. It came from what the household depends on. The person whose paycheck the family can't lose ends up holding a kind of power they might never ask for and might not even notice. But the other spouse feels it. In every conversation about money, in every disagreement about priorities, in every moment where one person's work is treated as essential and the other person's time is treated as bendable. And if the household also carries a lot of debt, the trap gets twice as tight, because debt does the same thing to a marriage that a demanding boss does. It takes away your ability to say no. I actually broke that whole system down in another video, and if what you're hearing right now is clicking, that one connects directly to this. So when you stack a demanding boss and heavy debt on top of each other, your marriage stops being a conversation between two people. It's being shaped by forces that neither of you fully controls. Most people assume that if work is straining their marriage, the answer is to earn more, get the promotion, take the bigger role, and sometimes that helps. But a lot of the time, more money comes with strings. The raise brings longer hours. The promotion brings more responsibility, more travel, more mental load. The paycheck grows, but so does the extraction. That's what makes this trap so convincing. It feels like progress. The lifestyle looks better. The bills get easier, so nobody questions the trade. Think about it this way. A couple earning $80,000 with some flexibility might actually have a healthier marriage than a couple earning $160,000 where one person works 60-hour weeks and travels twice a month. More money coming in. Less of the person earning it at home, less room to fix things when they break, and more dependence on the very thing causing the strain. More money can even make the arrangement harder to question. The moment one spouse says, "I think your job is hurting us," the other hears, "You want me to earn less?" That conversation shuts down instantly. The income becomes a shield. The sacrifice becomes something nobody's allowed to challenge, and the marriage keeps absorbing the cost because the entire lifestyle has been built around a paycheck it can't afford to shrink. That's going to matter in a minute. Leave this running long enough, and the job starts redesigning the marriage from the inside. Not around the couple, around the work. And it happens so gradually that most people don't notice until their whole life has already been rearranged. You think you picked your city. Your job picked it. You think you delayed having kids. Your schedule delayed it. You think you passed on something you both wanted to do together. One person's boss made that call before the conversation ever started. Then the roles harden. One spouse becomes the provider. The other becomes the one holding everything else together. At first, that split feels practical. Over time, it becomes who you are. He thinks she doesn't appreciate how hard he works. She thinks he doesn't see how much she carries. And they're both right. But they've been adjusting to outside pressures for so long, they've confused adjusting with choosing. The options they think they're picking from were already set by a boss, a paycheck, a commute, and a cost of living that neither of them agreed to. The marriage isn't falling apart. It's being outbid. And that's the thing. Your boss didn't need to do anything dramatic to become the third person in your marriage. Your boss becomes the third person because whoever controls your time, your stress, your calendar, and your financial security is already setting the terms of your relationship, whether they know it or not, whether you see it or not. Therapy helps. Books help. Hard conversations help. But none of those reach the part of the problem that lives outside the marriage. They don't touch the thing upstream that's been shaping your home this entire time. The job market takes your best energy, your sharpest hours, and your deepest patience, and your marriage gets whatever's left over. The company books the profit, your home books the cost. And both of you keep pointing at each other because the real force was never sitting at the table. The question was never whether work affects your marriage. Of course it does. The real question is whether your home has enough breathing room, enough independence, and enough power to stop your boss from quietly rewriting your marriage one workday at a time. Because the couples who break out of this don't do it by communicating better. They change the structure. They build breathing room. They protect time. They stop treating the job as the thing that can't move and the marriage as the thing that always has to bend. They flip it. And that, my friends, changes everything. If this gave you a way of seeing things you didn't have before, this is what I do on this channel. I map out the hidden systems shaping your marriage and your money. Most of what's really driving your relationship isn't visible until someone lays it out. That's every video here. Check out my other videos and I'll see you in the next one.